All right, welcome everyone. It's great today to be able to interview Marina Carrier and Ed Fernon from Modern Pentathlon. I'm Sarah Cook. I'm not a modern pentathlete myself, so I look forward to learning a lot from both of you guys. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
So we do have to probably disclose that this could be a little bit of a Sydney University love-in. Of course, we're all connected through the university in that sense, but we'll try not to be too biased with that as we get through the interview. But let's start with you, Ed, and I want to talk a little bit about how you found the sport of modern pentathlon, because apparently you hadn't tried shooting or fencing. And of course, they're two of the 5 disciplines. So can you tell us a little bit about modern pentathlon and how you came to find that sport?
Yeah, I hadn't actually done much swimming at all as well. So I sort of only had 2 of the 5. But yeah, so modern pentathlon, obviously swimming, running, fencing, shooting and swimming and show jumping. For me, I was a good runner at school and did cross country and athletics and really enjoyed that. And I've been riding horses all my life. While I was growing up, we had a family farm down in Wagga, and I used to travel down there quite regularly during the school holidays. So I really loved my horses, and after school I went jackarooing and sort of followed that a little bit. And then I started at Sydney University in 2007 and had no thoughts about sport or anything like that. I started Bachelor of Commerce at Sydney University. And I think after about 3 months of repetitive hangovers living at St John's College at the university, I sort of realised I needed to make a bit of a change in my life and was looking for a personal challenge. And my uncle suggested I try modern pentathlon. He lived next door to Hunter, who had trained the horses for the Sydney 2000 Olympics. And so I sort of learnt about modern pentathlon, and I could ride and I could run, and so I thought I'd give it a bit of a go. So I started doing a lot of research, and obviously there's a lot of, I guess a lot of people say that you should come in with a swimming background and things like that. At that stage, I'd never picked up a pistol. I'd never picked up an épée, and, I was an absolutely terrible swimmer, but thought I'd give it a go. And I can remember meeting Daniel Esposito on the 27th of August, 2007. And that date I'll always remember. And I just was telling him my thoughts and wanting to have a go at modern pentathlon, and he just sort of said, quite clearly that, look, unless you're considering going 100%, you're 100% in, and you want to go to the Olympics, it's not even worth starting. And I thought, I didn't really want to go to the Olympics, or had any aspirations for that at that particular point in time, but I think for me, that was a real turning point, because it was either you're 100% in or you're 100% out. You may as well, for him, he was sort of said, you may as well focus on one of those other sports, but there's too much time, money and commitment required to just muck around in a sport like modern pentathlon. So that was great advice early, and I decided from that point on that I was going to try and have a crack at making London 2012. And I mean, I remember sitting down with Marina, and that's sort of the same advice I gave to her when she came back from the UK. And it's obviously, something I passed on and helped her to make that same decision.
Yes, sage advice there. And Marina, you came through a slightly different pathway. You found the sport through school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. So I lived in England, as Ed mentioned, for a year when I was 13. And I was being shown around the school by one of the teachers, and he just turned to me and said, "Oh, you're Australian, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Australian." And he goes, "Oh, you do all that running, shooting stuff, don't you?" And I'm like, What are you talking about? And he explained the sport, and like Ed says, he only had 2 out of the 5. I had 0 out of the 5. And somehow 13-year-old me thought it was an awesome idea to pick up 5 sports at once and do it. But I absolutely loved it. And so I did the sport through the school. It was really awesome. They set up everything, and I just did it for the pure love of it, and had a great time. Then a year later, I moved back to Australia, and it sort of fell by the wayside, and I threw myself into school sport like hockey and soccer and swimming. And then one day I just got this phone call from this guy saying, "Oh, I picked up the phone and was like, oh, hi, my name's Ed Fernon. Oh, hello. I went to the London 2012 games. I'd heard you'd done pentathlon before. Would you like to, pick it up again and be my training partner, sort of thing? And we'll meet up for a coffee and have a chat. And that was when I was 16. So I'd been back in Australia for 3 years. And sort of picked it up a second time, and Ed took me under his wing and showed me the ropes, and it's sort of been a bit of a journey from there. So what was that, 4, 5, 8 years ago now? So yeah, here I am.
Wow. And Ed, how did you even hear about Marina, and how did the idea of her being your training partner come about?
Oh, well, Marina lived around the corner from my parents.
Oh, okay.
Small suburb. You talk at the coffee shop.
Talking mothers who are,
How good.
constantly
talk.
I found out about Marina, and I think at that stage there was a real opportunity for the Youth Olympics, and I know at that stage I thought with Marina, if she had a bit of a background there, she'd have a real good shot at being able to qualify, I think, for Nanjing. And so, obviously my first point of call was to try and get Marina back in there so she could focus on that. And obviously one thing led to another.
And on that, Marina, so your first Australian team was the Youth Olympic team in 2014. Can you tell us a bit about that experience, and did that light the fire then for you to want to go to the Olympic Games one day?
So that experience was like, nothing could have prepared me for that. It was awesome. You're part of a big team, you're seeing all the other sports, and there's so much to see and do. It was just so exciting. And despite, actually, I had emergency appendectomy, so appendix surgery 2 weeks before the game. So that sort of was a bit of a stressful time, but managed to get to the start line. And certainly, I think it sort of opened my eyes to how wonderful, that sort of Olympic experience could be. But I think I just really wanted to, it set the fire more for getting out there and proving myself and really being competitive on that international stage. I think that was more what got lit for me. And then, of course, then with the Olympics being the pinnacle of that, then that was obviously part of that goal by extension.
Yeah, absolutely. And after the 2014 Youth Olympics, the following year, you were second in Oceania to Chloe Esposito, and she, of course, went on to win the Olympic gold medal. And so I guess at that point, you must have known that, it's a bit rough, obviously, when someone else in Oceania becomes the Olympic gold medalist, but to really know where that benchmark and that standard was and where you were in relation to that.
Totally. I sort of see different phases of my career, and that trial to Chloe, it was daylight between me and her. She was so much more experienced. But I think, to sort of have that in my sights and sort of realize that, what I needed to put in to get to that or, competitive level. Certainly it's been a long journey. You don't just wake up and suddenly decide you're going to be some elite sports person. But having those realizations along the way has certainly been really helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I've been talking to athletes from various sports in recent weeks, and one of the themes that really comes out of it is that, it is a journey. Quite often, I think kids and athletes think that it's going to be this linear progression and it's just going to go upwards, but the journey sort of looks a little bit different sometimes. So
absolutely.
You've had a number of setbacks in terms of injuries. You had a major injury before the Oceania and Olympic qualifiers in China last year. Can you tell us a bit about that, because that was quite horrendous?
Yeah, so I was having a great season. I was competing over in Europe. This was the beginning of last year, 2019. I'd beaten world number 2. I was on fire. I was ready to qualify for the Olympics, give it my best crack. And while I was competing over in Europe, I had this really bad hip pain. And lo and behold, it turned out to be bone stress in the neck of my femur. And for those uninitiated in bone stress, to have it in the neck of your femur is a pretty bad area to have it. So I flew back home, cut short all my comps and everything, and was put on crutches. And Yeah, so I was on crutches for, 8 to 10 weeks, and by the time the trials rolled around, I'd been off crutches for 4 weeks. I was pretty much walking for 4 weeks leading into the trials, and my doctor had given me, my sports doctor had said, look, 1% chance you're going to this thing. But
Wow.
and they made me promise that if I competed and my leg started hurting, I had to stop, because they knew that I'd compete until my leg broke. I kind of made the promise, but I kind of, I was kind of like, if the Olympic qualification's there and my leg's broken, I'll just keep going and keep going across the line. But yeah, it was really hard to sort of see all that hard work for 4 years, and it felt like it was all unraveling. And yeah, when people talk about high points in their career, you often think, oh yeah, the time I beat world number 2 or came, 7th at junior world championships. But upon reflection, that comp for me, I probably should consider it a high point, because I realize I'm now at this point, 6-8 months down the line, realizing what an achievement it was to actually cross that line when I was so unfit and weak. And I had no concept of how weak I was. I was just like, oh, I know what to do. I've been doing this for years. Of course I can do a full day of pentathlon comp, having been on crutches for 8 weeks. And yeah, you just, yeah. So it was been rough, and certainly there's been sort of a knock-on of injuries even following that, which has been hard to deal with too. But yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster. You're right. It's not linear. It's
No,
very up and down.
not at all. I mean, amazing. You weren't able to run or fence for almost 3 months leading into that. You're on crutches. You managed to come away second, and then ultimately getting that all-important qualification position for Tokyo. So you deserve to be very proud of what you've achieved. And I guess in some respects for you, and dealing with those injuries that have, I guess, been rolling on, seeing the Olympics postponed for another 12 months probably isn't such a bad thing.
For me, yeah, it's been quite helpful. We're all in unique situations, and for some people it's good and for some people it's bad, but another year to get stronger and fitter is pretty awesome.